uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Monday. We got a new week. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about from over the weekend, so we'll get to it here. For one, we've got a Fox host pushing back on the Trump campaign on one of their talking points. It's really interesting. We're going to talk about that. Then we've got the real face of QAnon kind of revealing itself for us, what they really hate. And it's not child trafficking. Then we, of course, got the Bay of Pigs Award. What is that, and who did it go to? This is interesting. Fun story, of course. As always, then we've got love letters between Trump and Kim Jong-un, one example of which we heard. And then we have prices for medicines, including vaccines, going up. And we've got, of course, one thing to blame about it, and that is corruption and greed. We'll get into that story of why, even though we're giving billions of dollars to these companies, we're not going to see an affordable vaccine. They're still going to try to make money off of it. So it's incredibly frustrating, the level of corruption we have. But it is look, we live in a corrupt country. So that's what it is. All right. Anyway, before we get into it, please like and share the stream. Very helpful that we do so because it gets it gets eyeballs and on the stream, helps with subscribers, things like that. So please help out if you can. And then, let's see. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Those of you who watched the stream on Saturday, I want to thank you for that. That was pretty awesome. So I think I might start doing more of those streams since I just had a very positive reaction from a lot of you. So thank you very much for doing that, for joining me, streaming some different games and stuff. So that's good. All right. That's it. I guess we'll dive into it. We'll start out with Fox News doing some journalism again. I know, what the hell? Donald Trump's campaign has been using an attack against Joe Biden. Trump himself has been calling him Sleepy Joe, and basically they've been talking about concerns about Biden's mental health. So I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I had concerns about Joe Biden's mental health, at least for a while there. He had some really bad initial debate performances. There were videos where he appeared to lose focus, and he would ramble and say ridiculous things. And so for a while, like I said, I was quite concerned. And Donald Trump, of course, noticed this, and his campaign capitalized on it, which is interesting, right? So now I'm not as concerned about that as much anymore because I realize that, Joe Biden's not a spring chicken, okay? He's getting a little older. He loses focus when you get old. You ramble. You forget some things. Joe Biden's not as sharp as he used to be. But to say that he is in mental decline, well, I mean, look at Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. It's obvious one of them seems to be in much bigger decline than the other. Do some comparisons, right? Because, again, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, also tends to ramble, lose focus, and forget. But Trump's campaign team, like I said, they're hammering this point, and they, clip out videos that get millions of views. But this doesn't seem to be having an impact at the polls, right? As Fox News host Sandra Smith is going to point out to Trump campaign communications director Erin Perini, which it's kind of funny because I read her name and the way that it's spelled, I originally thought it was Erin Perrin. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting tidbit there, like Erin Perrin. Oh, no, Perini. It's got to look all, or it's got to sound all fancy and not all the way that it looks. But nonetheless, nonsensical point, and actually what is a fairly serious story. But again, she goes on Fox News, and Sandra Smith decides to challenge her on that line of attack. And we've got a couple of clips on that, so I'll show you the first one.
Questioning Joe Biden's mental capacity to be commander-in-chief, but a new Fox News poll shows that more likely voters believe Biden is better equipped mentally to be in the White House than President Trump. Let's bring in Trump 2020 press communications director Erin Perini. She joins us now. Erin, good morning to you. I know you're traveling with the president's campaign. You're in Wisconsin this morning. Appreciate you coming on. So seeing how this is not working in President Trump's favor in the polls, why stick with this message?
Well, I would argue that it is working in the polls. President Trump in that Fox poll is at his strongest standing since going against Joe Biden, and has cut Joe Biden's lead by 7 points in that poll. And the people that are trying to change their campaign messaging right now and their strategy are the Biden campaign.
All right. So, look, that's pretty interesting, right? It is working. But the poll that she just shows that people are actually more concerned about Donald Trump's mental decline, that he can't handle the presidency. So, no, it's obviously not working. Way to come up with literal alternative facts. But, hey, she is right that in some polls, Donald Trump, look, Joe Biden's lead is narrowing over Donald Trump. He's catching up in certain places. Florida's a good example. The race is tightened there. And, look, Florida is a very important swing state. And so, who's in Florida? No, there's a large contingent of the Latino community. Now, there's, of course, Cubans who are generally pretty conservative, but there's also generally the Latino community overall, which she's also right. There's, a lot of Latinos not exactly happy with Joe Biden. Why is that? Well, again, if you can remember from the Democratic primary, the Latino community actually was massively in favor of Bernie Sanders. Why? It's because Bernie Sanders actually offered real policy positions. Now, if Joe Biden wants to fix that, which I would assume if he wants to win, he probably should, right? His campaign should start going hard on progressive policy. I would say adopting Medicare for all. I would say adopting, since, California is currently on fire right now, a Green New Deal. That would be the best way to go. Why? Because, again, the Latino community and, of course, Americans all across the political spectrum, they want ideas. They want progressive ideas. Things, again, like healthcare during a pandemic. It's frustrating and incredibly stupid, the fact that Biden's campaign is focusing only on, we're not Donald Trump. That's why the polls are tightening, okay? Understand. That's the reason. But anyway, he's not Donald Trump, though. That's their focus, okay? We get it. Orange man bad. What are you going to do when Donald Trump's gone? right? Are you going to do any policies that help the American people? You are the challenger. You were supposed to put Trump on defense. Instead, you're letting Donald Trump do what he does best, and that's go on the offense, which worked really well in 2016 because he was, quote unquote, going against the establishment. Now, not so much because he's been president for 4 years. And so, Joe Biden, you're the challenger. Act like it, okay? Challenge him. And by the way, on that, Smith is going to point out some other things that Joe Biden could challenge Donald Trump more effectively on when it comes to policy. Take a look.
Voters' biggest concerns: unemployment, 87%, coronavirus, 83%, crime and violence, 64%. These are huge issues for voters. So why make Joe Biden's alleged cognitive decline a centerpiece of President Trump's re-election campaign?
Well, it's certainly a question the American people need to ask. Listen, if there's a crisis in the world, it's 3 a.m. Who do you want answering the phone at the White House? President Trump, who has an incredibly strong foreign policy record delivering for the American people, protecting our people, or Joe Biden, whose own campaign couldn't even make a declarative statement on whether or not he uses a teleprompter for interviews. We know what this president has done. The American people are hearing about it, and that's why the president is on the rise.
Okay, Aaron, the president took it a step further this weekend, and he suggested that Joe Biden is taking some sort of performance-enhancing drugs. Here's the president. But the president suggesting he's on some sort of drugs and questioning his cognitive decline. I mentioned it's not working for him in the polls, but when do you decide that that's not working and pivot back to the election, pivot back to American safety, pivot back to getting people back to work as millions of people are still out of jobs in this country, Aaron?
We're talking about everything. Like I just said, the president is asking questions, and Joe Biden should answer them.
That's not how that works. I'm just saying, no, Joe Biden is the challenger. Donald Trump is the incumbent. Donald Trump has to, defend his tenure for the last 4 years, defend his presidency. Again, you're trying to turn it around and make this exactly like 2016, which it is not. And so, look, you want to defend your record, right? Well, Donald Trump's going to have a really, really difficult time. And his advisors know this, right? Coronavirus, for example, nearly 200,000 dead. We're in a deep economic recession. We've got, massive, if you care about this, right, massive debt, mostly from tax cuts for the rich, failure to give the supporters a wall. I still don't see a wall, and I certainly didn't see Mexico pay for it. The consistent lying, of course, the fact that he was downplaying the virus and he admitted to it, even though he knew it was deadly. And then lying when Americans began dying, and has continued lying about the virus. Biden should be on the attack about all of that. Now, as far as the 3 a.m. morning question, I always hate that question because it seems ridiculous, but all right. No, I don't trust Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump would probably still be awake at 3 a.m. tweeting on Adderall. I'm just saying, you want to talk about performance-enhancing drugs, you might want to explain all the sniffles. I'm just saying, I don't think Donald Trump had a cold. But back to the important points here, right? So the polls on Trump's handling, as she pointed out, of this crisis are absolutely abysmal. He cannot defend his record. So as a result, they're throwing everything that they got at Biden, right? Everything at the wall, hoping that something will stick. It is amazing how liberals didn't seem to quite understand that, right? Establishment liberals are like, no, you don't understand. We can't nominate somebody like Bernie Sanders because they're going to call him a communist, a leftist, and all that stuff. Whereas they're doing the exact same thing to Joe Biden, calling him a left-wing, anti-cop Antifa, right? And this is a guy who was very pro-police, someone who authored the 94 crime bill, who said, oh, you know what, cops should be able to shoot people in the leg instead of shooting them dead. That guy's the so-called leftist Antifa. You've got to be kidding me. No, under Obama Biden, we had crackdowns in a lot of different places. For example, Standing Rock's a great example of how the Obama administration allowed for these crackdowns to happen on Native protesters. And so people that were out there basically calling for justice for a community that has been basically, repressed or oppressed. And so, look, Trump is a disaster. And so people are not worried, though, about Joe Biden's mental state because we already have someone in office that's clearly insane. I mean, the question is now, and I think it's an important question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And there are certainly some people in Trump's camp who will say absolutely yes, right? Now, that's going to be members of very wealthy and upper middle class people, mostly suburban whites. And that's, of course, suburban white men who overwhelmingly go to Donald Trump. As for everyone else, and yes, there is a country that's just, for other people, other people than suburban whites. The answer to that question for them is no, we're not better off than we were 4 years ago. And so that's the message I think that they need to continue pushing. Hey, all the stuff that you say is going to happen in Biden's America right now is happening in Donald Trump's America. And so are you better off? Objective reality says no. All right. Zachary Fluke says, and this is a great message here, Biden has specific policies that would actually help people, but the unbelievable incompetence of his campaign has done nothing to inform people of those policies. That's because their only message is Trump bad. 195,000 are not better off. They're dead. That's very true. A lot of great comments from you guys. All right. Moving on here. President Trump wants you to know that he wins awards. The best awards, the greatest awards. In fact, on Sunday, he boasted that he won a very prestigious award, the Bay of Pigs Award. In fact, according to the president, on Twitter, Sleepy Joe Biden has spent 47 years in politics being terrible to Hispanics. Now he is relying on Castro lover Bernie Sanders to help him out. That won't work. Remember, Miami Cubans gave me the highly honored Bay of Pigs Award for all I've done for our great Cuban population. Okay, look, in case you have not heard about this highly coveted award, well, there's a reason for that. It's because it doesn't exist. It's not a real award. Just made it up. Fake. As Daniel Dale, journalist, notes, for those confused by Trump's claim that he got the highly honored Bay of Pigs Award, he got an endorsement in 2016 from the Bay of Pigs Veterans Association. It's not an award. And he also noted that, quote, he has a long history of turning endorsements and other non-awards into awards. You don't say. Really? Like we've never seen that one happen before. All right. So let's just get into the fun of this, right? So, wait, the president is crowing about getting a fake award based off a disastrous failed invasion of Cuba. Okay, then. Does he even know what the Bay of Pigs is? Does he get I feel like he's too stupid to understand this, right? So I guess there's either two things that are going on here. Again, he doesn't know what the Bay of Pigs is, as I mentioned before, or he's counting on his followers to be too stupid to know what the Bay of Pigs is. Either or, it could be both, probably both. But look, here's the funny thing about that, the little irony,
Your own state. And then we have said, oh, this LGBT agenda, pedophilia is next. And they told us we were crazy. They told us we were homophobic. But the God's honest truth is pedophilia, this pedophilia agenda is being normalized. It is being pushed forward. And I'm a God-fearing man, but I think these Democratic leaders who allow this to happen need to be shot dead in the street.
cheers and applause. You saw. Cheers and applause for a call to violence against people. Jeez. Look, QAnon claims to be against child trafficking, abuse, and pedophilia, right? That's something that we're all against. But understand, this man, this is who they really are, okay? This has always been used as a front, right? Protecting children. It's being used as a front to attack gay, bi, trans, non-gender binary people. Always at the heart of it, it's always hate. It's always hate. And also, of course, it's being used in politics, in a political context, in order to attack liberals, progressives, Democrats, right? Notice how, of course, they never discussed the allegations against Roy Moore, who, allegedly molested young women, or Republican Dennis Hastert, or Donald Trump and his numerous, not only rape allegations, but also private parties with Jeffrey Epstein, where there was a girl that was allegedly not of legal age. And so, private party, okay? So they also notice how they never go after the Catholic Church and their issues with pedophile priests. It's always the liberals, the Democrats, the gays, and the trans people, right? And it's because, again, this is who they are. This is who they are. Look, their conspiracies get people hurt, okay? And look, they get trans people hurt, right? Despite being trans people being constantly attacked, sexually assaulted, murdered in the streets at incredibly high levels. This just feeds into that hatred, that feeds into these attacks. And so, again, people do get hurt. For example, back in 2016, Washington, D.C. police arrested a 28-year-old man, Edgar Madison Welch. Why? Because he believed, like millions of other people, as we've discovered, that there is quote-unquote Pizzagate, right? That there's this conspiracy where, people in positions about Hillary Clinton, right, is running a pedophile ring out of a basement of a pizza shop. So this man, Welch, goes into a pizzeria, right? It's a business owned by a gay owner, James Alefantis. He went into this pizza shop with an assault rifle and fired. Almost killed somebody. Could have killed somebody. And Welch believed, thanks to this nonsense, that the basement of this pizzeria was filled with exploited children. Except there were no children. There wasn't even a basement. I remember talking about this. And yet, these conspiracies continue to run rampant. And here's the thing. You may have seen this happen in your own life, right? Where you've got, like, normie friends. People who are not really all that involved in politics. Could be a friend from high school. Could be an aunt or an uncle, right? And they start sharing these hashtags, right? Sharing these, these memes and things, right? And some of them are like, hashtag save the children. No, of course, everybody wants to save the children, right? But QAnon co-opts these things in order to capture those normies. So now you're a political friend, coworker, family member, whatever, because they obviously everybody wants to save the children. They start sharing this stuff, and slowly but surely they continue to get fed by algorithms, mainly on Facebook, but it's also on YouTube, all over on social media. They slowly get fed bullshit under the guise of, oh no, we're exposing the truth in order to save the children, right? That truth to them ends up, being, let's go after Democratic politicians, right? Let's tie them to child abuse. Again, Hillary Clinton's the best example, and I'm no Hillary fan. You guys know this. But the things that they spread about her, well, there's no shred of proof, right? Because it's not true. But they can continue to feed it, continue to push it and push it and push it. And pretty soon, your normie friend is now posting about gay pedo Democrats that are harvesting adrenochrome from the fears of little children, using it to get high in order to enact the one world order and Agenda 21 that's going to put us all in hobbit homes. No, it's insane. And that, of course, only voting for Donald Trump is the way that's going to stop it. Complete and utter insanity. You don't think Donald Trump knows this? Of course he knows this. He doesn't care because it helps him. It helps him politically, helps him electorally. And so it helps him to continue to push this modern day satanic panic. And look, somebody's going to get hurt. And people, I believe, already have. And the supreme irony about all of this is that children who are actually being trafficked are not being helped by any of this. Can you show me one example of the Trump administration, or just even spreading these hashtags all over social media, has helped one child escape trafficking? You can't. You can't, because it hasn't happened. No children are being saved from this abuse by these internet activists, right, on the Q side, okay? They're really just taking resources and time and attention away from these actual organizations that are really fighting against trafficking. It's taking away resources. And here's the sickest part. It's being, the whole thing is just a front to weaponize the suffering of children for just political gain. And that's it. And they've had a lot of success about this, right? The Republican Party now has a myriad of QAnon supporters who have won their primaries and who could be going to Congress. They might be in the levers of power themselves. Is it any wonder why the Lincoln Project and Bush-era neocons have decided it's time to take over the Democratic Party? Why? Because the Republican Party has become the party of neo-fascist and conspiracy theorists, specifically QAnon. They are the QAnon party now. And so, unfortunately, I don't see a way to stop this. I don't see a way where we can fight against this massive disinformation other than, of course, trying the best that we can to put out the truth. But unfortunately, our biggest enemy is also our biggest asset, and that's social media. This is spread like wildfire through both YouTube as well as Facebook, and those are the only ways, the only avenues that we can use to fight back against it and actually protect real victims of trafficking and to stop them from being hurt and trafficked as well. And so all we can do is continue to spread the truth and talk about what's really going on. But as far as this is concerned, this has always been a front for hate. QAnon is just like all the other supposed moral people, moral groups, that really their biggest targets have always been those who are most disadvantaged and disenfranchised. All right. All right. So that said, I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to thank some super chats. We're going to read some super chats. Thanks some supporters on Patreon as well as channel members. And we've got more stories, including one of the love letters between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. Fun times. And then how you're going to get screwed over, and actually how you are getting screwed over from Big Pharma. All right. Stay right here, Round the Nation.
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
Mike Pounds. Tolerated. Yosemite.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Round the Nation, Waldorf Nation. All right, so patrons here, I want to thank Josh Lighthill and Susan Larson. That's, of course, patreon.com/JeffWaldorf. Channel memberships, I want to thank Cam and Adam Prawl. So you want to become a channel member, please hit the join button below. That's how you can do it. Let's see, no more TYT Nation. Waldorf Nation now. So a little bit more individuality. A bit more reflective, too, of what the channel's all about. But yes. Everybody really loves that tighten up that meat. That's pretty great. It's Brian Kilmeade.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
I think that was a segment about sandwiches from Fox and Friends. It's the best though. It's great. All right. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Zane. Love the chat, especially during the opening sequence. Yeah, Zoom calls, man. It's always full of great, embarrassing moments, but it's always good. All right, anyway. Let's read some super chats, by the way. Tanko Bangle has a few of them. Trump paints himself orange to hide his nose. I'd have to see some sources on that one. Also says Donald Trump has won the A-hole of the Millennium Award. Something I thought I'd win. Congrats on winning this loser war. That's good stuff. And then I don't know if that's true about where the origins of QAnon. But I did read about, of course, a person who allegedly was running the site in New Jersey and had it shut down. So, interesting stuff. All right. One more here, actually, too. Goku just saying says, the Ben Shapiro effect, just because you talk fast doesn't mean you're cognitively all there. Same goes for Trump. Yeah, but then there's also...
wet ass P word.
I'm just saying. All right. So let's move on here. We've got the love letter between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. That's always super fun. Oh, QAnon started in 4chan. Yes, that is true. That is true. That I know of. All right. On Sunday, Bob Woodward, who has hours of taped conversation with Donald Trump, as we find out because of his book, he sat down with 60 Minutes' Scott Pelley. In one of those conversations, he talked about Donald Trump's relationship with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, and he even reads an excerpt of one of those letters that they had exchanged. You know, the famous letters that we had heard about? Well, here's him explaining what was in one of them.
Kim says to Trump, our meetings, our relationship is out of a fantasy film. He says there is a magical force between us. Even now, I cannot forget that moment of history when I firmly held Your Excellency's hand as the whole world watched.
Did the CIA have a look at Kim's letters?
Yes.
And what did they make of them?
They never figured out who was writing them. But the analysts concluded that they're masterpieces because they are appealing to Trump's sense of grandiosity.
Wow. We have a magical force between us. It's like a fantasy film. Okay, though. Really? Do you, though? I mean, really? Magical? Look, I have my issues with the CIA. You guys know this, but the analysts right on the money. Yes, they do appeal to Donald Trump's ego, vanity, and, of course, his sense of grandiosity. And look, they do know how to manipulate the president. Turns out it's not really that hard. All you have to do is suck up to him because he's a narcissistic moron. That's it. Again, let me show you some examples, right? So are we focused on North Korea? Are we talking about North Korea a lot? No, not really. Is it because they stopped their nuclear program? No, not really. Do we have a new peace agreement with North Korea? No, nothing. No, it's actually still about as uneasy as a relationship as it's always been between our two countries. And so, I mean, is there really that much change? No. It's just slightly weirder, actually, because you've got these really strange... And again, this is what Donald Trump... I use the word, the phrase, love letters, because that's exactly what Donald Trump called them, okay? We give the most beautiful love letters. Well, yeah, that was beautiful, right? Such a magical. Even again, I cannot forget that moment of history when I firmly held Your Excellency's hand as the whole world watched. Excellency. Again, they're referring to Donald Trump as excellently. He knows how to stroke that ego. He knows how to stroke it. He knows. Look, what did Kim Jong-un want? Well, I think for the most part, he wanted legitimacy, right? That's all that North Korea, well, not all that North Korea, but that's one major thing that North Korea was looking for. This, what most dictators understand, that's what dictators want first, legitimacy, right? And so Donald Trump going in and, doing the handshake and basically all the, photo ops. And that's what that is. I wanted a peace deal. I wanted a peace deal where North Korea would agree to open up, denuclearize, and stop being so authoritarian and stop, murdering its own citizens and placing them in gulags. I would appreciate that they didn't do that, right? I would want them to not do that, and I would hope a peace deal would eventually lead to the freeing of North Korea by their own means. You know what I mean? The democratization of North Korea through their own means without external factors acting upon that, such as, like, for example, invasion, totally 100% against that, on all that stuff. But we didn't get any of that. But Kim Jong-un got what he was looking for. And again, that's legitimacy, being legitimized by the most powerful country on the face of the earth. That's what they wanted. And they got it. And look, all they had to do was to suck up to Donald Trump. And that's it. And understand, like, here's the thing. I think Donald Trump loves authoritarian dictators so much because they're a lot alike. They really are. I mean, look, dictators are usually vain, narcissistic, and of course very disdainful of democracy. And they do things that Trump right now only dreams about doing. Like, he really wants to do this stuff to make people stand up and clap for him, right? To get rid of the press. He was earlier this weekend talking about putting Obama in jail, right? Leading an impromptu chant at one of his rallies to lock him up. Whereas in 2016, they did the same thing when it came to Hillary Clinton. Look, there's no doubt that Donald Trump has been packing the courts full of conservatives, right? Incredibly pro-Trump conservative justices. Now, in the Supreme Court, didn't quite exactly work out because it turns out that these conservatives, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, were just much more wedded to corporations than they were for, or I should say, for more than they were wedded towards loyalty to Donald Trump, who appointed him, who appointed them, I should say. But nonetheless, this is something that, again, usually people who want to, get into power and stay into power do. He talks about, yeah, I know. They say, oh, no, he's just joking about a third term. No, I think he's pretty serious. All right. I think when Donald Trump says something like that, you might want to listen. You just might want to listen because he has those authoritarian leanings and he wants to get and keep as much power as possible. And so, look, that's why I'm really worried about him getting a second term. It's very possible that we could continue to go in a more authoritarian direction because after all, Donald Trump, what he's been doing is he's been encouraging vigilantes to go out and hunt against quote unquote Antifa, right? Violent. Do you think that they can tell the difference or they want to try to discern the difference between actual, rioters and people doing violence and peaceful protesters? Cops, the cops seem to be having a pretty hard time with that. And so, yeah, I don't exactly trust that they'll be able to. And he's been encouraging people to go out to protest, to BLM protests, which, again, 93% of all of them have been entirely peaceful, to cause violence, to go and, quote-unquote, challenge them with guns. And so that is what authoritarians do. And so, look, I am very, very concerned about the future of democracy because, for one thing, I don't want to have to, be at a future where people talk about how Trump has no anus. That's a future that I'm going to really try very hard to fight against to make sure that does not come to pass. But seriously, though, some Trump supporters have admitted that, yeah, if they're going to have a dictator, they'd like to have one like Donald Trump. I think right now, in the heart of every Trump supporter, beats an authoritarian fascist. And very, very concerned about what's going to happen if he wins a second term. All right. One more here. Let's talk about corruption. That is not what I wanted to do. All right. One of the world's largest drug companies is raising their prices in the middle of a pandemic, despite receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from the taxpayer in order to develop a coronavirus vaccine. So now the LA Times is writing that AstraZeneca, who received large amounts of taxpayer money, announced not just one set of price hikes back at the beginning of the year in 2020, but two, according to analysis of drug pricing data by the Times and 46 Brooklyn Research. So now AstraZeneca hiked prices on some of its biggest selling medicines by up to about 6% this year, following, of course, trends such as last year raising the prices as well in a similar fashion, and the year before, raising prices at much higher rates than inflation, which is currently around 1%, according to the analysis. So now, it raised it once by 6%, and then raised it again even more by about, I believe, 3 to 4%. So now, that second round of increases, by the way, came after it secured about $1.2 billion from the U.S. government in order to develop a vaccine for coronavirus. Now, that company, by the way, after receiving this money, was also reporting more than $3.6 billion in operating profits in the first half of 2020. That's not even full 2020, right? That is the first half, because 2020 is obviously not over. But we're going to see possibly a profit of even more than $6 billion this year, and yet we, the taxpayer, are giving money to this company to develop a vaccine that they are going to turn around and sell right back to us. That's a big problem, okay? They're making bank. And again, this is at a time where millions are out of work and have lost their health insurance, and still they are raising prices on us and taking our money in funding. Now, look, I know Republicans, conservatives love to complain about double taxation, right? Which isn't really a thing, but in this case, you could argue that it's a lot like one, a lot like the concept. Our money is going to, again, go to these companies for the research and development, so they say, and then they turn around and they're going to charge us hundreds of dollars for a drug that takes a fraction of that to produce. And a lot of the research, by the way, for the drugs happens in universities, which are, again, publicly funded. It's highway robbery. Your money or your life. And in many cases, it's a literal, right? Because you most likely will need that drug to survive or at least function normally in society. And they know this. They know it, but they don't care about you. They want the blood money, and that's what it is. They know you have to have it. Then they know that you'll find a way to pay, or else you die. That's it. Now they're saying, oh no, the price increases. It's all to help people to afford drugs. Because, you know, sometimes we give it away for free for people who are struggling. So you're going to raise prices on everyone else instead of dipping into your gigantic profit margin to make sure that people can afford those drugs. No, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. But for them, again, understand, they don't care if you die, right? That if you can't afford a drug. Because there is no shortage of customers for big pharmaceutical companies, and there's no shortage of taxpayer money. Peter May-Bartek, who oversees drug policy for the nonprofit watchdog group Public Citizen, said this, quote, "Pharma corporations are sophisticated political actors that understand that this is a risky time to be seen increasing prices, and yet these corporations are addicted to price increases." So, I mean, there's a certain truth to that, right? Again, the government has given about $10 billion to different companies in order to encourage them to create a vaccine for COVID-19. Because, of course, apparently they have to be, compelled with funding in order to develop a vaccine that they, again, will turn around and sell to the consumer. We have no promises that this vaccine will be freely available. In fact, both presidential candidates have said it's not going to be free, but quote unquote, affordable. Affordable. Right. No, it's going to cost the average person a lot of money. I mean, it's ridiculous. What the hell was that $10 billion for if not to pay for the vaccine for the American people? For the research and development, right? You think that $1.2 billion that went to AstraZeneca would actually, cover that. Instead, it probably does cover it, but they're still going to try to make bank all over it. And that's the thing. That's the problem here. I mean, as far as the administration is concerned as well, what's Donald Trump done about it? I mean, he's promised to lower prices 4 years ago. Now, the companies also promised to lower prices. Instead, we've seen increasing prices. It's increasing, ever increasing. And so those promises mean absolutely nothing. And by the way, before the pandemic hit, 1 in 5 households reported that they last year were unable to pay for the medicine that a doctor had prescribed because of the cost. So that's 1 in 5. 20%. Now, with the pandemic, it's probably even larger. And again, at the start of this year, most major pharmaceutical companies had continued to hike prices at rates far exceeding inflation. I mean, several of the world's biggest drug makers had announced hikes of 5 to 6 to even 9% on a host of popular medicines, according to an analysis, which looked at list prices by the 15 largest drug companies using the gold standard drug database, which includes pricing and clinical information on tens of thousands of medications. And so that leads me to, to basically spelling it out. The other virus is greed. That's what it is. We've got coronavirus, which is new, but the virus that's always been here in our system has been the greed of these companies and CEOs. The way to combat that is to have a government with the courage to take on the pharmaceutical industry and who doesn't take their dirty money. And it can be done. Countries in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere have aggressively tried to control the cost of medications, either through government price setting or indirectly through price negotiations, which is what we're talking about here, right? So Bernie Sanders, the so-called, self-avowed socialist, radical socialist, his radical idea was letting Medicare negotiate drug prices with companies. That's it. No, not setting prices through, price controls, right? But no, just allowing Medicare to use their leverage that they have by being Medicare and, to be able to negotiate for cheaper drug prices. Because there's no reason why a vial of insulin should be $300 when it costs less than $10 to make. And even probably less so. But I'm not sure on the exact pricing. It could be even less than $1 to make, to produce. And so it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It can be done. We can control the prices of drugs if we actually had a government that's willing to do so. And by the way, those companies who are successful at doing this, they have national healthcare services. Everybody's covered, and they can use that leverage to negotiate, and they end up saving money. We spend twice as much as other countries, as every other country, on healthcare, and we can't even cover half, or even the majority of our population. It's ridiculous, and it's because our government is corrupt. It's so corrupt and so captured by special interests that they just won't do it, and of course we end up having a large amount of people suffer. And at the same time, these companies get fabulously wealthy. AstraZeneca reported that its revenues for the first half of the year were up 14%, and that operating profits surged more than 20% from the first 6 months of 2019, according to its report. Pascal Soriot, company's chief executive, at the time hailed this as a strong performance and as a, quote, another step towards profitability and cash generation. And yet, even with that, they raise prices. And the final thing is here, the way that they do it, they rub it in their face. We see that it's happening. We know that it's happening. And there have been numerous calls by presidential candidates to do something about it. And yet they still never do it. In one nationwide survey earlier this year, 9 in 10 Americans said that they were concerned that the pharmaceutical industry would take advantage of the current pandemic to increase prices, and that's exactly what happened. And yet nobody's doing anything about it. Donald Trump said, hey, I'm going to do something about it, and he didn't. They knew Donald Trump wasn't going to lower prices. They know Joe Biden is not going to do anything to lower prices. The only thing that they were concerned about was Bernie Sanders. And they helped Joe Biden crush him with a flurry of ads against single payer and talking points. One of the biggest groups, by the way, is the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future, right? That is a dark money lobbyist group made up of hospital, health insurance, and pharmaceutical lobbyists. And they were committed, and still are, to stopping single-payer healthcare or expanding Medicare or creating Medicare for all. And, of course, they're also against the public option because they don't want any sort of change in our healthcare system. Because if it does change and prices go down, they stand to lose out. They can't get away with price gouging the American people anymore. So don't expect anyone to fix this. Joe Biden's not going to fix it. Donald Trump sure as hell isn't going to fix it. The only way to really fix it, to ensure that we can actually fix this broken system, is to get money out of politics. You got to get the money out. You got to get the corruption out. And we've got to elect people who don't take corporate money, who don't take dark money from pharmaceutical or any lobbyists. We've got to end this corruption because turns out Our lives literally depend on it. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation. Metho Nelson says, let's see. For Trump so love the dictator, he'll give up one of his ill-gotten sons. I don't think he cares about his kids, other than Melania. I'm sorry, not Melania. Ivanka. She's probably young enough to be one of his kids, though. Just saying. Just saying. All right. Let's see. SideQuest Eat the Rich says 1/10 of my income goes to medication, being on Social Security and Medicare. Yep. I believe it. Definitely believe it. We definitely need to do something about this. All right. Thank you all. Have a good night. We'll see you all tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. You have a good night. See you later.
Tolerate.
Please clap.
There's some whores in this house.
Silence. Mike Pounds.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Yosemite's.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.